Hey everybody, I thought I would talk with you guys and gals today about the proper application of isolation movements. And I think one of the things I see people do poorly, and again, when I say this, there'll always be someone who says, well, I've seen pro bodybuilders like Branch Warren use all sorts of cheating and crazy form with heavy weights on isolation movements. It's like, well, not really an isolation movement anymore, is it? Uh, and again, context. Can't draw all of your conclusions by watching pro bodybuilders, which we've discussed many, many times as to why that is. All right, but when it comes to these movements, I want people to understand I am all about heavy lifting. You guys see in my vlogs and everything that I do, you see me literally doing reps and work sets. Again, closing in on 50 years old. 315 for pause bench for work sets, 90-pound weighted chin-ups for work sets, 500-pound deadlifts for work sets. So let's be clear, when these topics come up, I am not against lifting heavy. Absolutely not against lifting heavy. By any means. I don't think anyone could say that I'm against these things. All right, now that being said, you'll see me do that, but then you'll also see me literally do lateral raises at the end of a workout with 10-pound plates. It's about 5 kilos for my people who don't use freedom units. And I'll just do those to failure. Slow, controlled, right? And just take them to failure. And really that's how most of our isolation movements could be. And I get it. I mean, all of us want to do the big, heavy cheat movements. I mean, you guys have seen me do cheat curls with 155, 185 quite some time back. And I finally got to a point I'm like, this is not really what I need for my biceps. Because it's, again, when I talk about these things, I want people to remember I am not talking from a place of perfection. I have these same ego problems all of you other guys do with this stuff. And I have to check my own ego. I have to check my ego continually. I have to approach the mindset the same. And here's what I would say when it comes to a lot of these isolation movements. You have to get into that mindset and to ask yourself, why am I doing this exercise? Why am I even bothering to isolate a muscle or attempt to isolate a muscle? Because we know you can't really do that, but we are making an effort to do so. Well, we're doing it for refinement. We're doing it to make sure that that muscle gets thoroughly worked and that we get any of the possible deep muscle fibers that we might have missed on the bigger movements. Okay? And that's what we're trying to do. So with these isolation movements, we are trying to make sure we work specific ranges of motion. That almost always includes getting the lengthened position, because a lot of them we can argue that they don't do much at the top depending on the exercise. And they may not be worth caring that much about, the very top of some of those movements. But the stretch at the bottom, oh yeah, the data is pretty strong at this point on that. So yes, we should be doing that. We should be using good form. We should be having control. And I used to be someone who, even up until somewhat recently, would say, I think negative reps are overrated. There's been a lot of data that suggests that maybe it's not that big of a deal. Well, unless it was, even the old data showed if it's under 1 second, we are losing some potential hypertrophy. And again, I want to be clear. I am not telling people to do 5 or 6 second negatives. I actually think, based upon at least old data, that that's detrimental. But again, we have these extremes. When you say that, what will people say? Well, this one bodybuilder. And it's like, well, there were other people arguing that we should just do stuff like Branch Warren. So are you going to argue? This is the problem with using pro bodybuilders, right? People will make those arguments. It's like, but you could make that argument for every extreme. Because one top pro does 6 second negatives, you could use him as a justification for 6 second negatives. Because another one on the exact same exercise uses tons of cheat reps, swings heavy weight, nothing under control, on literally the exact same exercise, and that same guy is placed in the top 5 at the Mr. Olympia. So then you could justify doing the exact opposite extreme. There is your problem. If you're going to use pro bodybuilder as an example, you can justify literally any training extreme, right? That are complete polar opposites in terms of training philosophy and methodology. So again, doesn't work too well. Doesn't work too well at all. But let's come over and discuss this. I mean, with isolation movements, here's the biggest problem I can tell you run into. Let's assume all other factors equal. Let's assume the big heavy cheat reps can produce just as much growth. Okay? In some cases, I think they can, by the way. However, isolation movements are harder on tendons and things. This has been my experience. Big heavy compound movements can be a little tougher on the joints, but they're usually fairly easy on tendons, because a lot of times we have everything stacked in such a way that we have good leverages, good angles. A lot of isolation movements put us into awkward angles that are not really natural, because it's not natural and normal for us to try to isolate muscles or to do single joint things. We're doing it because it works for building muscle specifically and building weak points, and it does work. But a lot of times it puts us at really disadvantaged angles. That's another reason we're forced to use lighter weights. And when we start cheating and doing really heavy weight, either the reps way too low or any of that, we start subjecting those tendons to serious inflammation. And when tendon inflammation gets out of control, I think you all know what happens, right? Things tend to snap. So if you keep doing those things, what do you think is going to happen? Well, it gives you a much higher injury rate. This is why overuse injuries are known to be the number one cause of injuries in the gym. And this is another reason that surgeons who reattach biceps will tell you that they reattach 10 to 20 biceps due to curls than they do for deadlifts. Does that mean that curls an inherently dangerous exercise? No. But if you're doing tons and tons and tons of cheat reps all the time with really high volumes, you will probably eventually rupture it. Your chances go up dramatically. Okay? So again, just something to think about. But how does the average gym bro curls? And people are like, what do you guys are going and getting biceps reattached all the time? It's regular. But look at how the average guy curls. Then ask yourself, does it really seem that unusual? Exactly. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys and gals next time.